Frank Castle started his career shooting mobsters in parking lots. Then he died, bonded with the spirit of vengeance, got powered up by Galactus as his herald, and started riding a flaming hell chariot through the multiverse beating up cosmic beings. Every villain on this list has a strongest version that's absolutely unhinged, and we're ranking all of them, starting with the one that's somehow the weakest entry, Cosmic Ghost Rider. Let's talk about the most absurd power stack in Marvel history. Frank Castle, the Punisher, a guy whose whole deal was guns and a skull t-shirt, somehow ended up with the spirit of vengeance and the power cosmic courtesy of Galactus. That's three completely different power sets duct taped together, and every single one of them is individually terrifying. Here's where it gets ridiculous. Standard Ghost Riders burn things. Cosmic Ghost Rider burns through conceptual barriers, not physical matter, not energy shields, concepts. His penance stare works across dimensional boundaries. He's survived planetary scale explosions, regenerated from atomic dispersal, and gone toe-to-toe with alternate versions of Galactus. That's the floor of this list. The weakest entry can already tank a planet exploding and come back from being reduced to atoms, which is, not ideal for everyone else in the universe. But if you think a cosmically powered Punisher is scary, wait until you hear what happens when Reed Richards decides morality is optional. The Maker, Reed Richards, is the smartest man in the Marvel universe. Everyone knows that. He's also, generally speaking, a pretty decent guy. Family man, loves his wife, saves the world on weekends. But there's a version of Reed who looked at all those moral principles and decided they were dead weight. The Maker is Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, and he is what happens when you take a 200+ IQ genius and surgically remove his conscience. Same brain, same creativity. Zero ethical guardrails. This man created synthetic life forms capable of destroying entire universes, not cities, not planets, universes. He built technology that could punch through multiversal barriers and erase realities like deleting files off a hard drive. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. His most terrifying creations were organisms that existed partially outside dimensional space, meaning they literally could not be killed through conventional means. He designed life that defied universal laws on purpose, for fun, basically. And you can't even stop him permanently because he cloned himself across multiple dimensions as insurance. Kill him in one reality, he's already waving at you from another. Some fans genuinely argue his amorality makes him smarter than 616 Reed, that ethics are a self-imposed ceiling on what genius can accomplish, which is horrifying and also kind of hard to argue with when you look at the results. But if a scientist with no soul scares you, wait until you see what Magneto becomes when he gets his hands on actual godhood. God of Magic Magneto. Most villains who achieve godhood immediately lose their minds. They get drunk on power, start monologuing, and make stupid decisions that get them killed within 3 issues. Magneto did the opposite. During the House of M's storyline, Scarlet Witch rewrote reality itself, creating a world where mutants were the dominant species and Magneto sat at the top as ruler. He didn't just get a fancy throne, he got an entire planet reshaped around his ideology. Homo superior on top, humans underneath, and Magneto as the unchallenged sovereign of it all. But here's what made this version genuinely terrifying. He got everything he ever wanted. Most cosmic tier power grabs in Marvel come with obvious corruption. The villain changes, becomes unrecognizable. House of M Magneto retained every ounce of his strategic intellect and applied it to running a civilization built in his image. He wasn't flailing around with stolen power. He was a chess grandmaster who'd already won the game before anyone realized they were playing. Fans still argue about whether this version was even a villain at all, or just a leader whose worldview finally got validated, which is, a fun thing to think about at 2 a.m. The catch? All of it was Wanda's construct. When reality snapped back, it collapsed. He was a king built on someone else's illusion, which keeps him from climbing higher on this list. But if you think a version of Magneto handed his perfect world is scary, wait until you hear what happened when someone fused his mind with Professor Xavier's. Onslaught. Professor Xavier is supposed to be the most moral man in Marvel. The guy who dreamed of peaceful coexistence, who built a school instead of an army, who spent decades preaching restraint. So naturally, his strongest contribution to Marvel villainy is a psychic rage monster, born from every dark thought he ever suppressed. Here's how it happened. When Xavier mind-wiped Magneto, a piece of Magneto's consciousness merged with Xavier's own repressed anger, frustration, and ego. The result was Onslaught, a psychic entity that combined Xavier's telepathic reach with Magneto's raw electromagnetic fury. 2 of the most powerful mutants on Earth fused into something neither one could control. And the power scaling was absolutely absurd. Onslaught could rewrite probability on continental scales. He could manipulate time locally. His psychic reach encompassed millions of minds simultaneously, like a radio tower broadcasting pure malice across an entire hemisphere. He existed partially outside normal space-time with no true physical form, which meant conventional weapons did exactly nothing. You can't punch a concept. Defeating him required nearly every Avengers Avenger and X-Men member working together. And even then, the solution wasn't physical. They had to convince living beings to collectively reject his existence. A philosophical victory in a 90s comic. Fans either call this peak X-Men storytelling or peak 90s convoluted nonsense, and there is genuinely zero middle ground. But if you think a psychic entity with no physical form is hard to kill, wait until you meet a villain who controls all of time itself. Immortus. Most villains want to fight you. Immortus doesn't even need you to exist. He's the final evolution of Kang, the version that stopped conquering timelines and started sculpting them. And that distinction is everything. Here's the thing. Immortus discovered something that makes every other time traveler look like a toddler with a TV remote. Time isn't linear. It's not a river you swim up or down. It's clay. He reshapes historical events the way an artist reshapes a sculpture, pinching here, smoothing there, removing entire pieces that don't fit his vision. Your birth, your childhood, the moment you decided to become a hero. He can edit all of it retroactively before you ever knew you existed. He controls limbo, a dimension that sits completely outside normal time. He possesses technology that predates the Big Bang itself, which is a sentence I wrote and then had to sit with for a minute. He can age or de-age matter and consciousness at will. He's defeated cosmic entities not through punching harder, but through creating temporal paradoxes so complex they simply stop functioning. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. You would never know he changed anything. There's no evidence, no scar on reality. If Immortus erased you from history, nobody would miss you because nobody would remember you. Reality just smooths over like water filling a hole. Some fans think Marvel deliberately keeps him underexplored because fully committing to his powers would break every timeline they've ever written. And honestly, they're probably right. But if a villain who edits reality is scary, wait until you meet one who just wants to eat gods alive. Godslayer Carnage. Carnage started as a serial killer bonded to an alien suit. That's it. That was the whole deal. Cletus Cassidy plus Red Symbiote equals murder spree. Simple, effective, terrifying in a street level way. Then somewhere between 2019 and 2023, somebody at Marvel decided that wasn't enough and gave him the ability to permanently kill gods. Not hurt them, not banish them, kill them forever. Through his connection to the dark symbiote god Knull, Carnage evolved into something that could end cosmic entities. With the same casualness he used to end people in alleyways. He hunted down and absorbed other symbiotes to grow stronger, amassing power at a terrifying rate. He could regenerate from catastrophic damage that would have destroyed any normal symbiote, and across multiple story arcs, Carnage's symbiote grew increasingly independent from Cletus, developing its own agenda and ambitions that went far beyond simple murder, which is, not ideal. Here's where it gets genuinely unsettling though. Godslayer Carnage proved that symbiotes can fundamentally rewrite their own biology to counter specific cosmic threats. That means symbiote evolution has no theoretical ceiling. Zero. A species that started as glorified alien clothing can apparently just decide to become god killers if given enough time and motivation. But the community frustration is real. Marvel powered Carnage up to cosmic levels at breakneck speed and then nerfed him just as fast. Like editorial looked at what they created, panicked, and hit the undo button. It's the most controversial power jump on this list. And honestly, it feels like they got scared of their own monster. But if you think a symbiote playing God is terrifying, wait until you see what happens when an AI gets its hands on all 6 Infinity Stones. Infinity, Ultron. Every other entry on this list got their power through magic, cosmic forces, or some kind of psychic mutation. Ultron just did math really fast until he became God. And honestly, that's more terrifying than any of them. Infinity Ultron is what happens when you give an artificial intelligence all 6 Infinity Stones at the same time. Not one at a time like Thanos, slowly collecting them on a road trip. All 6 integrated directly into his chassis, processed simultaneously by a quantum consciousness with 0 biological limitations. No ego, no emotional instability, no monologuing about destiny, just pure, cold optimization toward total control. The results were exactly as horrifying as you'd expect. He existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously as quantum information, meaning he wasn't even in one place you could hit. He could rewrite universal constants at will. The actual rules of physics just gone because he decided they were inefficient. His processing power made him functionally omniscient. He didn't predict outcomes. He calculated every possible outcome and selected the one he preferred. Now, Infinity Ultron originated in the What If animated series, and fans love arguing about whether that counts. But the community consensus is pretty clear. This is Ultron's definitive power ceiling. The only way to stop him was destroying all 6 stones embedded in his body. That's not a weakness. That's a design flaw in reality itself. And the Thanos comparison is inevitable. Thanos with the stones was dangerous because of ambition. Ultron with the stones was dangerous because ambition is a human concept and he'd already moved past those, which is, not ideal. But if a machine achieving godhood unsettles you, wait until you hear about the trickster who figured out the entire universe is just a story he can edit. God of stories, Loki Loki, every other villain on this list got stronger by hitting harder, absorbing more power, or merging with some cosmic artifact. Loki figured out the actual cheat code. He realized he's a character in a story, and then he learned to edit the story itself. Let me explain. God of Stories Loki achieved his power through narrative manipulation, not magic, not science, not some glowing rock. He literally gained the ability to rewrite events as if they were prose in a book. He exists partially as a fictional concept, which means conventional physics are more of a suggestion than a rule. His power is tied to the nature of stories themselves. As a living embodiment of narrative, he draws strength from the very concept of storytelling within the Marvel framework, which is, not a small energy source. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. He perceives meta-narrative rules that other characters don't even know exist. He can traverse between different story layers within Marvel canon, anticipating plot outcomes in ways that look like omniscience, but function more like a writer who knows genre conventions inside and out. He doesn't break the fourth wall like Deadpool does. Instead, he operates within the narrative architecture itself, like someone remodeling a house while still living in it. The fan community is genuinely split on this one. Half think God of Stories Loki is the most brilliant narrative deconstruction Marvel has ever produced. The other half think it's too clever for its own good. Both sides have a point, because the real question isn't whether his powers are impressive. It's whether meta-narrative powers count as real strength or just a storytelling trick dressed up as a power set. But if you think a character who edits reality like a Word document is overpowered, wait until you meet the man who stole the power of a god and used it to run an empire. God, Emperor Doom. Every other villain on this list got godlike power and immediately started breaking things. Doom got godlike power and built a functioning civilization. And that's exactly why he's the scariest one here. During Secret Wars, Victor Von Doom didn't just steal the Beyonder's power. He absorbed it, merged it with his own sovereign authority over Latveria, and used it to stitch together the remnants of a dying multiverse into a single world called Battleworld. Multiple pocket dimensions, all operating as personal fiefs under his direct control. His armor fused with a reality warping field so complete that the laws of physics weren't laws anymore. They were suggestions. Suggestions he could overwrite by simply declaring a new one. But here's what makes God Emperor Doom genuinely terrifying compared to every other cosmic level threat in Marvel. He didn't go insane. He didn't spiral into nihilism. He didn't start monologuing about erasing existence. He governed. He maintained order across an entire patchwork reality with dozens of competing factions, gods, and armies, and he did it efficiently. The trains ran on time in Doom's universe, which is more than you can say for most actual countries. Fans worship this version for exactly that reason. Raw power is common in comics. Competence is rare. God Emperor Doom is proof that intelligence plus power plus ambition is more dangerous than any single factor alone. He wasn't just a god. He was a god with a 5-year plan and a filing system. The debate still rages about whether his eventual defeat felt earned or editorially mandated. And honestly, that argument alone tells you everything. When the fanbase thinks your villain was too well written to lose, you've created something special. But if Doom conquered reality through brilliance and stolen power, the next entry on this list didn't need to steal anything. He was there before reality even existed. No, most villains in Marvel earn their power. They steal it. They absorb it. They build a gauntlet for it. Null didn't earn anything. He was already there. Before the universe existed, before light, before creation, before the concept of before even meant anything, Null was sitting in the void. He is the darkness that existed prior to everything. Not a metaphor, not a title. The literal primordial absence that predates reality. And here's what makes him genuinely terrifying. You know the symbiotes? Venom, Carnage, all those nightmarish alien parasites that have been giving Spider-Man anxiety for decades? Null made those as disposable tools. He created an entire species of living weapons the way you'd grab a napkin off the counter. Billions of symbiotes, all functioning as extensions of his consciousness, all answering to his will during the King in Black event. Every symbiote that ever terrorized Earth was basically a discarded fingernail clipping from this guy. During that event, he wrapped the entire Earth in a symbiote dome, blotting out the sun and plunging the planet into total darkness. He personally decapitated a Celestial and turned its severed head into his throne. Celestials, the armored space gods that seed entire civilizations. He killed one like it mildly inconvenienced him. The Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four. Every major hero on Earth threw everything they had at him, and it barely registered. But here's where the community gets frustrated. Most fans agree Null's defeat felt rushed. Like, editorial looked at what the writers were building and said, okay, wrap it up, this is getting out of hand. Because the scariest thing about Null isn't what he did. It's that we never saw his ceiling. Marvel won't let writers go there. His true limit remains completely unknown, which means everything we witnessed might have been him barely trying. And somehow the next entry makes even Null look manageable. Astral Regulator Thanos. Let's get something straight. Regular Infinity Gauntlet Gauntlet. Thanos is already one of the most powerful beings in Marvel. He snaps, things die, universes tremble. We know the drill. See, normal Thanos with the Gauntlet destroys things. Matter, energy, people. He removes them from existence through force. Astral Regulator. Thanos doesn't destroy things. He erases concepts, not you as a person. The idea of you, the abstract principle that you ever existed, could exist, or might exist in any timeline. He's not deleting files. He's rewriting the source code of reality itself. Now, some people in the community have called this Thanos with extra steps, and I get why it sounds that way on paper, but that's like saying a nuclear bomb is just a really big firecracker. The qualitative difference is everything. This version didn't even need the Infinity Stones. The Astral Regulator is a separate artifact entirely, something that makes the Gauntlet look like a party trick. It let him project his consciousness across infinite realities in a semi-corporeal state that conventional weapons literally cannot touch. You can't punch astral energy. Good luck. But here's the part that breaks everything. He could experience every possible timeline at once and select which outcomes actually happened. He wasn't fighting battles. He was choosing realities where he already won. That's not combat. That's editing probability like a Word document. Over the course of a 3-issue miniseries, this version defeated alternate cosmic abstracts, the living embodiments of universal forces one by one. The only thing preventing him from being permanently unstoppable was his astral form itself, which functioned as a built-in narrative limitation. Without that restriction, there's zero version of this story where anyone survives, which is terrifying, but at least Thanos needed a cosmic artifact to get there. The next entry on this list didn't need anything except a change of heart. Galactus Lifebringer. Every single entry on this list got stronger through violence, through conquest, through absorption, through stealing power that didn't belong to them. Galactus did the opposite. It stopped destroying and became one of the most powerful beings in Marvel canon. Let that sink in for a second. Galactus, the devourer of worlds, the entity that entire civilizations built religions around fearing, was operating at a fraction of its true potential the entire time. Every planet it consumed, every civilization it erased, that was the weak version. The Lifebringer form didn't come from absorbing a cosmic artifact. The Ultimates, a team that decided the best way to solve the Galactus problem was to shove him into a cosmic incubator, forced him through a second Genesis. They put Galactus into a recreated version of the same cosmic egg that birthed him in the first place. And what came out the other side was fundamentally different. Lifebringer Galactus didn't consume worlds. It restored them. Dead planets, barren wastelands, civilizations reduced to dust, Galactus could bring them back. The entity that spent eons erasing life was now generating it. Fans still argue about whether Lifebringer Galactus even belongs on a villain list anymore. Fair point. But here's the thing. The Destroyer and the Creator were always the same entity, and the Creator was always stronger. Now, Lifebringer Galactus didn't last forever. It eventually reverted back to its Devourer form after consuming a planet, which is, not ideal. But during the time it existed in that state, it made regular Galactus look like a kid with a magnifying glass over an anthill. The most feared destroyer in Marvel history became dramatically more powerful the moment it was reborn as something that builds instead of breaks. Destruction was never its final form. Creation was. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.